Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place that helps you cut through all the noise from countless sources to really bring you the essential knowledge and insights you need, and fast. Today, our focus is on a device that seems to be really blurring those lines between, premium and practical. It's the OnePlus Nord 5G. We've gathered up all the latest reviews, the analysis, everything to figure out exactly how this mid-range contender is managing to pack in features and maybe more importantly, the feel of a top-tier flagship phone. So if you're watching the smartphone market, maybe wondering, why should I pay like $1,000 when I can get maybe 90% of that experience for half the price? Well, this deep dive is definitely for you. The sources we looked at, they pretty much universally suggest the Nord 5 is an exceptional machine, feels way more expensive than it actually is. But we want to unpack the specifics, right? What corners do they not cut? And, where the trade-offs may be actually negligible. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with that immediate thing, a tactile experience. The physical design, does it genuinely live up to this sort of elevated hype we're hearing?
Oh, it absolutely does. And I think this is where OnePlus immediately sets the Nord 5 apart. When user feedback kept saying mid-range felt cheap.
Yeah.
OnePlus seems to have responded directly with materials that just defy that expectation. We're talking about an actual aluminum frame here, not plastic.
Okay.
That gives the phone this substantial, sturdy feel in your hand. It feels solid.
And what about this specific look they're pushing, this dry ice colorway? Is that just clever marketing, or does the finish actually add something for the user?
It's definitely marketing, but it's marketing that delivers on a practical promise, I'd say.
Yeah.
The dry ice finish, it's got this sophisticated frosted matte look. It's modern, it's minimalist, sure. But the key detail is the utility, like you said. That finish actively resists fingerprints and smudges.
Oh, that's a good point.
And it sounds small, but it really matters, doesn't it? Nothing ruins that premium phone illusion faster than a back cover just smeared with oil after like 5 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. Even some flagships get that wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they nailed that detail.
That's pretty interesting. So a real focus on perceived quality, but also just daily usability. Now, looking at the physical dimensions, it's around 8 millimeters thick, under 200 grams. Is that kind of the sweet spot for a modern phone? Or does that lightness maybe make it feel less durable?
I think it really hits the sweet spot for ergonomics, yeah. It feels balanced in the hand. And importantly, they managed to keep that physical profile sleek by cleverly integrating the camera module.
Okay.
If you compare it to some competitors in this price range, you often see these massive kind of awkward camera bumps, right?
It can be pretty chunky.
The Nord 5's housing is just clean. And that aesthetic coherence, that's a huge part of why it looks and feels like a more expensive, more polished piece of hardware. The design success here is foundational to the whole premium impression, I think.
Okay, so the outside feels premium. Got it. But what happens when you actually turn it on? Does the display live up to that hype, or is that nice aluminum frame just, lipstick on a lower quality screen?
No, the screen is definitely one of its strongest features. It's a 6.74-inch AMOLED panel, right? Which, yes, means you get those deep inky blacks and really vibrant colors. But focusing on the specifics, the really smooth experience comes from that 120 hertz refresh rate. Everything from just scrolling your social feed to watching high frame rate video just feels fluid, buttery smooth, as they say.
Fluidity is one thing, sure. But how does it actually perform in, real-world conditions? We can assume our audience knows what AMOLED is. They want to know how this panel compares, especially maybe outdoors.
All right, that's the critical comparison. And the sources highlight that the brightness levels are easily sufficient for sunny days. No problem there.
Okay.
Now, look, OnePlus isn't hitting those absolute peak brightness numbers you see on the, $1,200 flagships, the ones pushing maybe 2,600, 3,000 nits.
Sure.
But the Nord 5's panel still comfortably pushes way past the levels you actually need for exceptional visibility, often well over 1,000 nits in its high brightness mode.
So the difference is marginal in practice.
Exactly. It's the difference between perfectly visible and maybe marginally brighter. It's a trade-off most users would honestly never even notice day to day.
That's a really great nugget of perspective there. It's
Yeah.
like delivering 95% of the experience for way less cash. Okay, now let's talk horsepower. This is usually where that gap between mid-range and flagship really widens. We're looking at the Snapdragon 7 Gen 3 chipset. For our listener, how does this 7 series chip actually perform against the current 8 series flagship chips?
Yeah, this is where the analysis gets really fascinating. The Snapdragon 7 Gen 3 is just incredibly efficient, seriously, in terms of just daily, instantaneous speed, opening apps, switching between browser tabs, loading typical games, you will notice almost no practical difference between this and a current 8 series chip.
Really? That close?
The processing speeds are phenomenal for this tier. The difference only really becomes apparent under like extreme sustained load.
Okay, like what?
Like editing a complex 4K video file for maybe 5 minutes straight.
Hmm.
Or playing a super graphics intensive game like, say, Genshin Impact at absolute max settings for like 45 minutes nonstop.
Right, the kind of stuff most people don't actually do all that often.
Precisely. Flagships handle that sustained heat dissipation and peak performance just slightly better over longer periods. But for, I'd say, 99% of typical user tasks, the 7 Gen 3 feels virtually indistinguishable from the top-tier competition.
So basically, if you're not a professional mobile video editor or like an hour-long competitive mobile gamer, you simply don't need the absolute top-end flagship chip. And yet, the Nord 5 still apparently handles demanding games on high settings pretty smoothly.
Exactly right. And this is really amplified by the configuration the sources we're reviewing, which had a very generous 12 gigs of RAM
12 gigs, wow.
and an enormous 512 gigabytes of internal storage.
512 gigabytes. Okay, that is genuinely disruptive for a mid-range phone, isn't it? Historically, that much storage was kind of held ransom by the most expensive Pro models. Why is 512 GB so important now, beyond just having more space for photos and apps?
Well, it's really about performance longevity and future-proofing the device. When you have that much ample storage, the phone isn't constantly juggling data in the background or slowing down because it's running out of space.
Right, that slow creep of lag.
Exactly. And pair that with 12 GB of RAM. That combination basically guarantees fast, fluid multitasking. You can jump between tons of applications, keep dozens of Chrome tabs open, whatever, and you just don't feel that laggy hesitation that often defines cheaper phones after maybe 6 months of use.
Ah, good point. It ensures the phone stays feeling snappy for, hopefully, years, not just the first few weeks.
That's the idea. It maintains that smooth experience long term.
That transition from just raw specs to the actual user experience is so key. And running all this hardware is Oxygen OS. We mentioned it's clean, but how does the software itself contribute to this flagship feel they're aiming for?
Well, Oxygen OS has pretty consistently been praised over the years for its lightness and efficiency. And crucially, it doesn't come loaded down with bloatware or tons of unnecessary duplicate apps.
Which is refreshing.
It really is. What it does offer are these smooth, subtle customization options that don't seem to weigh down the operating system. And this clean design language, it translates directly into perceived speed.
Oh.
It basically means the powerful hardware isn't being bottlenecked by an overly complex or, poorly optimized operating system, which you sometimes see with other Android skins. So the overall verdict on performance from the sources is pretty clear. In just normal day-to-day use, the Nord 5 feels just as capable and certainly just as fast as devices that cost nearly twice as much.
Okay, that performance picture is pretty compelling. That brings us to the next really critical point, the camera system. The camera is usually like the first place manufacturers are forced to cut corners to hit a price point.
Yeah.
So where does the Nord 5 succeed and, well, where does it maybe fall apart a bit?
The strategy here seems pretty smart. Prioritize the main sensor above pretty much everything else. They included a 50-megapixel main camera, and the results in good lighting conditions are apparently excellent.
Excellent how? Like sharp, good colors.
Yeah, both. Crisp detail, fantastic color accuracy, wide dynamic range. The images are described as punchy, ready for social media sharing, and just consistently reliable. You point, you shoot, you get a good photo.
Okay, that's great for daytime. But what about that traditional Achilles heel of mid-range photography? Low light performance. How does it handle dimmer conditions?
This is where the sources noted a genuine leap forward compared to previous Nord models. Low light performance is quoted as improved noticeably.
Okay.
And apparently this isn't just some software trick. It's attributed to using a larger physical sensor and also enhanced image processing working together.
So it actually captures more light.
Exactly. It can capture significantly more light and detail, which means you can get genuinely useful, pretty high-quality photos even in dimmer indoor settings or, basic night shots.
Oh, and the video stabilization is apparently impressively steady, too, which is vital for any modern phone user, right?
Definitely. Shaky video is unusable. Okay, that sounds really stellar for the main camera. But let's be critical here. If you're getting near flagship main camera performance, where did they make the compromise? Is it the ultra-wide lens? Is that just an afterthought?
Yes, that is the clear trade-off that we really have to emphasize for you, the listener. The secondary lenses, so the ultra-wide and the macro lens, they're described pretty consistently as uh, serviceable, if not outstanding.
Serviceable, okay.
They offer versatility. Sure, they let you capture a broader scene or get really close up, but the actual image quality noticeably dips compared to the main sensor.
Define dips. Like, how does it look worse? Is it poor color matching between lenses? Or are the edges just softer, less detail? It's mostly both, but primarily softer edges and significantly less detail overall, especially if you start zooming in or look at the image at full resolution. For the casual user just taking a quick wide shot for context, they're probably fine.
Right.
But for the photo enthusiast or maybe the social media user who really relies on that ultra-wide perspective for important shots, yeah, the Nord 5 is definitely relying very heavily on its superb main sensor. That's a clear indicator of its price point.
Understood.
Yeah.
Calculated compromise. Now, let's pivot to endurance, because a great screen and a fast processor don't mean much if the battery dies at like 3 p.m., right?
Absolutely.
What kind of battery life are we looking at here?
We're looking at, well, massive endurance, actually. A 5,000 mAh battery is pretty standard for high-end devices now, that's true.
Yeah.
But the efficiency of that Snapdragon 7 Gen 3 chip, combined with the optimization in Oxygen OS we talked about, means this battery reportedly lasts comfortably through a full day of moderate to even heavy use.
Even with the 120 hertz display on all the time.
Yeah, even with that power-hungry 120 hertz display running constantly, sources say it's genuinely a two-day phone for lighter users.
Wow. Okay. That's impressive. And then when it finally does run dry, charging is kind of OnePlus's signature move, isn't it?
Yeah.
They claim it goes from near empty to 100% in around 30 minutes.
Yep, that's the claim. Super fast wired charging.
That speed is incredible, no doubt. But it does raise a fundamental question we should probably address. Is that kind of rapid charging actually safe for the battery's long-term health?
That is a crucial question for you to consider, definitely. The short answer is the technology itself is generally safe. OnePlus uses clever techniques like multiple battery cells and advanced thermal management to handle the heat generated by such high wattage charging.
Okay.
But there's always a trade-off with physics. While it's safe in terms of not, exploding, the battery will likely degrade a bit faster over, say, 3 or 4 years than if you were trickle charging it slowly overnight every single time.
Right. Heat is the enemy of battery longevity.
Exactly. But the convenience factor here is just transformative for many people. The truth is, for busy users, waiting just half an hour to fully recharge their main device, that's a massive quality of life upgrade.
Yeah, I can see that.
So if battery longevity over maybe 4+ years is your absolute #1 priority above all else, you might pause. But if daily usability and speed are paramount, that 30-minute full charge is arguably the single most game-changing feature for a user who's constantly on the go.
That perspective is vital. Yeah. It's like the phone is engineered for the modern user who values that rapid turnaround time more than maybe squeezing out an extra couple of months of peak battery health 4 years down the line.
Precisely. It's a choice reflecting modern usage patterns.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all home now and really synthesize these findings for our listener. We need to define the exact value proposition of this OnePlus Nord 5 5G. What are you really getting?
Okay, the value proposition is essentially this. Stunning display technology and premium materials that genuinely feel like they belong on a flagship. That's point one.
Right, the look and feel.
Then you combine that with really fast, very efficient performance thanks to that Snapdragon 7 Gen 3, and crucially, that massive 512 GB of storage. Then add in a truly impressive main camera, and top it off with superb battery life paired with that lightning-fast wired charging. Add it all up. It makes it, according to the sources, an easy recommendation for its price bracket.
Okay, sounds strong. But we absolutely must conclude by making those compromises crystal clear. What are the, let's say, 2 specific things you are definitely sacrificing by choosing this Nord 5 over a, say, $1,000 flagship device?
All right, the 2 main sacrifices are clear. First, you are sacrificing truly high-end secondary camera lenses, meaning your ultra-wide shots and your macro shots will be visibly weaker than the main camera and weaker than what you'd get on a top-tier phone.
Okay, camera versatility takes a hit. What's the second?
The second is a major convenience feature that still largely remains exclusive to premium phones. Wireless charging. That is notably absent here. No wireless charging on the Nord 5.
I got it. Weaker secondary cameras, no wireless charging.
Those are the key trade-offs. And if we kind of connect this to the bigger picture for a second, this device really demonstrates maybe a tectonic shift happening in the smartphone industry.
How so?
Manufacturers like OnePlus are realizing they can deliver, let's say, 90% of the core flagship experience, the premium feel, the top-tier performance speed, massive storage by simply omitting maybe 2 or 3 peripheral features like the secondary lenses and a wireless charging coil. The actual performance gap for everyday tasks, it's closing incredibly fast.
It certainly makes you scrutinize that big price jump to the absolute top tier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if a smartphone can deliver what feels like flagship-level performance day to day, a genuinely premium physical feel, enormous storage like 512 GB, and that super fast wired charging, how long before we stop defining phones just by their historical price tier and maybe start defining them purely by this single key feature they lack? Like, is this the flagship minus wireless charging phone?
Exactly. It reframes the comparison.
Something for you to definitely mull over as you compare those spec sheets and prices out there. And that concludes this deep dive into the OnePlus Nord 5 5G. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Deep Dive.